All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Guinness Storehouse. You ready for the hottest All-Ireland Hurling final of all time? Jeez, you're a bit quiet. Come on, a bit of enthusiasm. Let's hear you. Who have we got from Limerick here? Quieten down, Greg. We're all dazzled by the hair. Jeez, reflecting off the sun, it could be a tough day for you now. Anyone here from Kilkenny? Anyone not got tickets yet? Oh, well, hang on. It might well be your lucky day a little bit later on. We've got a brilliant preview to come over the next 45 minutes. There's a bit of breakfast down the back as well. If anyone's hungry, we're going to get you set for this mammoth clash. And we've got a brilliant panel as well. Sarah O'Donovan is alongside me.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Give it up for Jamie Wall.
Hello.
Kilkenny legend, Eddie Brennan. Woo-woo. And the great Ciarán Carey of Limerick is here as well. Jesus, Eddie and Ciarán, you look primed for action this afternoon.
Yeah, I was making sure I kept them in sight at all times. I said I didn't want to get a jostle as we're lining up.
We are here in the Guinness Storehouse in partnership with Guinness 00, now with Guinness 00, 100% Guinness, 0% alcohol. More social occasions off the GAA pitch are yours for the taking. So we're only, 3 hours away from throw-in. It is going to be, I think it's fair to say, Ciarán, the hottest, literally the hottest All-Ireland hurling final ever. We're getting a sense outside as to just how tough it's going to be. Is that going to be a factor, do you think, this afternoon?
I don't think so. I suppose if you ask any inter-county player weather conditions, they'll probably go for the hottest day because the ball is going to be zipping. And, you know, the modern player is going to be well equipped for that. And, you know, not only will they be going for about 70 minutes, but they'll have the ability with the training they've done for another 20. So the weather, I believe, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It'll suit both teams today, so no excuses. Basically, the team that comes, really, I suppose, cream almost comes to the top, and we'll have a fair idea today at about 4:30. Who that is?
I think it's the first time a team has gone into an All-Ireland final against Kilkenny, Eddie, with such optimism. You can see it in Ciarán's eyes there. There's a confidence.
Yeah, well, hopefully we won't turn their cream sour today. One side's cream will sour at the end of the day, but yeah, sure. Look, it's just a brilliant occasion. As I said, you're coming in. Christmas is landing on the 17th of July for us all, or in the middle of summer in the hottest days, and I suppose Ciarán can relate to that from '96, that famous day against Clare. You know how hot that was on that occasion. But like I said there, I don't think the weather will just mean that lads will probably coming down the straight. They'll someone empty off a little bit, and the physical exchanges will impact on that a little bit. But I think what will carry lads today is just the adrenaline of the occasion. I think if the head is willing, the body will go. So it'll be very interesting to see. But it probably puts a premium on the bench today. I think your subs are going to have such, and we see it as so pivotal with Limerick. So it's just going to be so important. And I think, I liken it to my experiences in '09 when, I sent Martin Comerford a text message the night after the team was announced and he wasn't playing, saying, we're going to need you on Sunday. And I think with such togetherness in a group and focus, that allowed Martin Comerford, his mindset going home Friday night in the midst of huge disappointments, to still be focused enough to come in on Sunday, see how the match is evolving, see where you can make an impact. And just, I would often say in a match when the legs are starting to tire out, that's the time when the subs need to carry the ball a lot more than just let it off. Hold on to possession, make the tired guys work. And that's what Martin Comerford, he carried 2 balls that day and made such a significant impact on the match.
It's all about Kilkenny and Limerick today, but in typical Cork style, we've been infiltrated by Jamie and Sarah, who are going to give us the neutral view on all of this. Do you go along with the two lads on the heat not been maybe a massive factor?
Yeah, well, I suppose first of all, since we're in the Guinness Storehouse and the lads have done it, I feel honour bound to make some sort of mention of cream or something like that. But no, look, like from a kind of a neutral perspective, if you can call myself that, given the amount of time I spent in Limerick with a lot of the lads, I think what it is going to do, it's going to have an impact for us as fans watching the game. We're going to see a really high quality game, particularly in the early parts of the game. And then I think it is going to be a factor in the game. And it's not that I don't think it's going to be a factor in the result, if that makes any sense. I think, like Ciarán said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and it will affect both of them probably equally. But I think it is going to affect the game in that we're going to see a brilliant first 45, 50 minutes. I think we're going to see a lot of tired bodies late on in that game. And if you were to say that it's going to benefit someone, you know, in terms of the finish out of the game, you would obviously look at the impact Limerick got off their bench 2 weeks ago against Galway and say that while Keane is obviously a loss to that, it's 3 rather than 4. Having 3 players the quality of David Reedy the last day, Peter Casey, Cathal O'Neill to come into a team, like I would go out on a limb and say the 3 of them would start for any other team in the country right now. And so like that is a huge thing for Limerick to have, especially on a day like today, to have that quality coming off the bench. And even to relate it back to what Eddie said about Martin Comerford and runners, like David Reedy's scores the last day, the runs he made, just the impetus he gives, I just think it's going to give something coming down the closing stretch to Limerick in those conditions.
I think we saw it last week where it was probably about 5-6 degrees cooler in the Dublin Kerry game, where the Kerry players, I've never seen so many players with cramp in the last 5-6 minutes of a match. I presume it'll change the pre-match warm-up and all that, Sarah, that the players won't spend half as much time out on the pitch.
You'd think that. I was actually in Semple Stadium yesterday for the Camogie semi-finals, and Waterford arrived an hour and a half before the match. They were out on the pitch and we were commenting, Jesus, they're out in the sun a little too long. You know, they need to go in now. And we were nearly going to shepherd them in ourselves. But they did an incredible job in the first half, scored 2-15. And then in the second half, they scored a goal. Like the energy just went right out of them. Second game, Dublin-Kilkenny. Dublin were level 17 minutes in. Kilkenny scored 1-11 to half-time. And then in the second half, they tapered down. As Jamie said, 45 minutes is what you're going to get today, and then after that, it's who's got juice in the tank.
I thought, Ciarán, when we came in, I thought Keane Lynch was here with us for a minute, but it's actually your young lad. So you're Keane's uncle. Your young lad and Keane look like twins pretty much.
Yeah, Eddie said the same thing. He's there now looking up at me. They're very similar, himself and Keane. Yeah, and would have went to school in Patrickswell National School together.
And the black and amber suits him.
The black and amber is absolutely beautiful, and it suits the little blonde in the hair as well. So he would have grown up with Keane in National School in Patrickswell, so they would have played a lot of underage hurling in Patrickswell also. He'd be very good buddies with Keane.
It's obviously been the big story that's dominated this week, the injury that Keane picked up. For you and the family, how does it change today, and how does it change the week, the disappointment that he won't be involved?
But for me personally, I'd feel very, very sad for him because, you know, at the end of the day, I suppose the one match that you want to be there, fully fit, and you want to perform to the maximum of your ability is the biggest game of the year, and that's usually in an All-Ireland final in Croke Park. So unfortunately, he'll miss out on that. But, you know, I was talking to him, he has a lot more years of actually to do that. And, you know, and I suppose, yeah, his presence alone, even when he came on the last day, even though he didn't touch the ball, the reason David Reedy got 3 points was there was 3 or 4 of them watching Keane Lynch on the left-hand side. Yeah. And he took up that bit of kind of busyness, for want of a better word. And I don't think it'll derail the Limerick squad as such, because, you know, they got to the final without 2 big fishes, Peter Casey and Keane Lynch. So, you know, there's a bit of consistency there that they can hurl. The machine can still continue, the system can still continue, and the process is still continuing. So, and if anything, I suppose I'm kind of catapulting myself back, if we were down a big fish, you know, there's always an extra 20 or 30% within you to do it for Peter Casey and Keane Lynch outside of the 3 in a row. So there's plenty of motivation there, Nathan.
What happened to him? Was it just a knock in training?
Yeah, I think they had a bit of a game this time last week and got a bit of a knock, and, you know, so unfortunately these things happened. You know,
but just to jump in, Nathan, I think it's one thing from a Kilkenny perspective and a hurling perspective. The game is a loss today because Keane Lynch is not there, and I can say that wholeheartedly from a Kilkenny perspective. And you know, one thing from my experiences with Brian Cody more than anyone would want Keane Lynch on that pitch today, because he loves to take on the challenge of the best team. And unfortunately, us as spectators as well, looking for a spectacle, it's a loss. But I suppose they knew a week ago it was happening, so it's cleaner for the squad in that someone can really get their head down. And as Ciarán said, you will, you know, on emotion today, you'll give that extra little bit, say, well, the lads can't do anything today, but we're going to make sure that we'll do something for them. So, but overall, like definitely people in Kilkenny, we would love to see Keane Lynch on that pitch today.
I suppose what I liked as well is that Limerick didn't play any mind games. They didn't put Keane in the 26th. They kept him out and they gave a lad a chance who's been training, and I appreciated that out of John Kiley.
Yeah, even though Brian, even though Brian Cody would like to see Keane Lynch there, I certainly don't think he'd need a box of tissues either.
No, he wouldn't have been crying. He doesn't do crying.
I'd imagine that.
If I was the manager of the opposing team, I'm going to say straight out, I would not want their best player playing. I'd be saying no, he can stay but I think Eddie, what you said there is very important. Is that like, and even look, you do remember yourself, going for another historic kind of day where Henry was touch and go and like that totemic figure. It is a lot worse to lose him 5-10 minutes into a game than it is to lose him 10 days out from a game. Do you know what I mean? And especially for a group like Limerick, who they will know, like the Lady spent the last 7-8 days they'd have come to terms with it in 2 days and they'd have just driven on, like the way they're so process orientated and that so it's never a good thing that you lose a player like that, but it is, like I said, it's a lot better for the team to lose him 8 days out than 8 minutes in.
Because you've been through that, Eddie, obviously in 2010 with Henry, different scenario where it did become a saga. It dominated everything for the week before, and you say 15 minutes into the game, the risk wasn't worth it.
Yeah, sure. We look back on it now, and again, you'd have your view of it or whatever, but because Brian always would have said we put such, I suppose, emphasis on the squad, and it's one man out, next man in, and he I suppose he gave him the chance to come round to do it, but it was the minute it emerged, and the Monday morning after that semi-final, the news was there. It just consumed everybody, your family, the media. The 5 in a row was there in the backdrop. So when we always had a nice smooth run in, devoid of injuries, our internal matches, controversy, it's great. And I said that's the one thing that you'd say maybe, for Limerick, that was the question during the week, and it can just you have your family at home asking those questions. It can sometimes take from a little bit. But I remember the night that Henry came back after doing all his physio with your Hartman down, and I think poor John Tennyson was up in Galway at the Galway races when he got the phone call. He says, Henry is going to Limerick to do rehab with your Hartman, and Tenno was like, oh grand, yeah, and you're going as well. So he had to leave his few days in Galway straight down to Limerick. But the night that the two of them landed back on the pitch for the internal training session, there was about 5,000 people there, and Henry is walking out of the tunnel and the crowd starts to clap, but Canis Hickey flies out past him, and Canis was of course telling us afterwards, geez lads, I got some reception coming out onto the pitch there, and he was on the squad, but it didn't take away from just the psychological drain that was there, and that's not against anyone, that was just the show or the circus that developed.
But Eddie, would you agree with me, because I remember the incident well, and I always had serious time for Henry Shefflin, but when he came back even after an accident, he appeared to go for another level for another 2 seasons.
Oh yeah, no, he just went to the next level. He went, like, even when he started in 2002, Henry was, a big solid fella. He went after the physical side of things, and really, really looked after the body in that regard. He didn't bulk up. If anything, he got leaner and more athletic, and he looked at all that side of things. And again, he just went to a new level. He used that time to get himself to a complete different physical level, and look, he kicked on and won, I think, was it 2 more hurler of the years afterwards, like so.
We'll have a chat about Jackie Turner now for another 10 minutes. Keep talking about the lads.
This morning, Eddie, the Kilkenny players travelling up. What's the pre-match routine? Did it change through the years with Cody, or will they do the exact same thing you were doing back in the early 2000s?
No, I think since 1973, when the Limerick County Board put on the free bar for the Kilkenny lads in Dublin the night before in All-Ireland, I think we've stopped coming up to Dublin. But no, the routine is, we usually meet outside Langton's and the buses are up, and we'll say the partners or the county board will look after all the bags, but the players, you go into your bubble, you do what you always do. I used to love the bus journey up because you had Larkin, Richie Power, James Royal, Tennyson and Cha in the back seat. Myself and Michael Rice would sit in front of him, and then you had Tommy Welsh and John Dahl, and sure, the crack was brilliant, and it just made you nice and relaxed. You're kind of half afraid to have that fun on the day of an All-Ireland, but it certainly helps, and the next thing before you know it, you land to the Crown Plaza, and it's just match mode then. And I think I was I love the routine, doing the same stuff you always done, not because, well, if I don't take 2 steps to the left here getting off the bus, it's not to that level, but you just like the familiarity. And we were very, very fortunate that we got to enjoy a lot of those days, and your routine then helped you, to make it what it was and stay focused on the match.
Yeah. Ciarán, were you superstitious?
Similar to Eddie, I wouldn't say superstitious, but I would have been ruthless in my prep, and I keep it as simple as I could. Yeah, I suppose there's no two farmers the same. You'd have a fella back there with a pair of earmuffs, listen to a bit of music. You might have 2 or 3 playing cards, and you know, I suppose I'd be kind of digesting everything within my own head, and just kind of keep it nice and cool, and timing it, for want of a better word, when to release the beast, or to time that mentally. And you know, and all of that is usually important, because you know, at the end of the day, nothing can be won between 8:30 and 3:30, but that is a huge part of getting yourself mentally right for the game, because if that is it could be lost, and your preparation could be lost. So if that area isn't nailed, and if you're not comfortable during that spell, well, come 3:30, that could determine then what type of a performance you're going to come up for about an hour and 10 minutes. And I suppose we to negotiate that ourselves. You know, we'd no sports psychologists really back in our day. Late in the day came alright, so we'd to kind of familiar ourselves with it, implement it, and if it worked in, you did it to your level best, and you did it on a consistent basis. And I suppose looking back at it, you know, I did it for a challenge game or an All-Ireland final.
Right, yeah,
it made no difference. And I suppose you'd have a pride within your own performance, whether it's a challenge game, a league game, a club game. And you know, every player raises their own bar, and if you want to keep the bar at that level, or else up at another notch, then you do what you always did.
Sean Finn is probably 10 to 1. He's probably asleep round about now.
Could be, yeah.
If he's
40 winks.
That's actually a fact. I did a thing with Sean in John Kiley's school 2-3 weeks after they won the first All-Ireland, I think it was, and they asked him, what do you do before a game? And Kiley just started laughing, and I was like, Jesus, a story here. And Sean Finn said that when they travel up the day of the game, but they kind of go into a hotel for a bit beforehand for their meal and all this, and that Limerick had to rent out a hotel room. I said that'd be some crack today, now about 500 or 600 quid, but they had to rent out a hotel room for Sean to go up for a nap between arriving in the hotel and thing, and he'd go up and he'd sleep and he'd just go out like a light, and they had to go. He woke up the morning of the All-Ireland, and he woke up apparently and he was like, oh fuck, I'm after missing the match, and he ran downstairs for the bus, and the lads were just laughing at him. They're like, we obviously would have gone up and got you, like.
Yeah.
But
Tommy Welsh is the exact same. Tommy Welsh just when we get on the bus to head to Croke Park, that 25-minute spin from Crown Plaza, and you'd look over and Tommy be gone off, and you're going, of all the people, Tommy Welsh, like, just the Energizer Bunny when it came to that.
Yeah, I think Tommy was unique somehow in his prep, as we heard during the week, as he was having the fry every morning the week of the final. He told us before that the night before, himself and Padraig would have about 5 or 6 slices of toast, white bread, as much butter as you could. But that was the routine, so they stayed in the routine. He said as well that, like, part of the genius, you talk about psychologists, and part of the genius of Cody was that he bedded into the players that no matter what happened, no matter what mental state you were, when you went on the pitch, you were always ready. So if you didn't sleep well, if you were nervous on the Saturday night before the game, didn't matter, forget about it. If you slept for 2 hours, if you slept for 10 hours, if something was going on at home, if someone was annoying you for tickets, any of that stuff, that somehow when you went into the dressing room, Cody had a way that all of that disappeared straight away.
Yeah, look, I just can hear him saying it so many times. I don't want to hear excuses, and he's very consistent with that. Even in the after matches, you know, it's one thing I admire with him. He never said this went wrong, that went wrong. It's just no excuses. We weren't good enough, and you know, he embedded that into us. You just steel your head for what's coming, and that's it. And once the ball is thrown in, you just let fly.
The best team always wins. He used to say that in interviews. I remember hearing him say that a few times, and he used to always think, that's easy for you to say, you've won the last 13 years in a row, or like 10 in the last 13 years.
The day then he floored Marty after the match, like, Tipperary were the better team. He says, yeah, but we won. So it doesn't matter, it's the scoreboard at the end, and that's just the nature of sport. You go win it when it's there to be won, and that's it. Like,
I was standing about 2 feet behind Marty when he was doing that interview, and I was trembling, so I'd say Marty was definitely having a few nervous moments. Does this one mean more to him? Like, the talk before this is because Limerick are on the cusp of 3 in a row, even with everything that's gone on with Henry and the controversy around that during the week, that there's something in Cody, a steeliness this year, that he wants this one more than any other.
Probably, yeah, but I think the fact that you're going up against a phenomenal outfit, and I'm you know, it's the one thing that Brian Cody and Gen hurling people in Kilkenny will acknowledge. You know, the team that is the All-Ireland champions are the best team out there, and Limerick have proved that for 3 or 4 years, and you know, we probably poked the bear a little bit in 19 and you know, made them come back, and I know what that's like, because I said it even in the aftermath of 19. I felt, Jesus, you knew by John Kiley's interview afterwards that was the day he learned so much in terms of, 20 minutes of hurling, put them on the back foot. And I'd say he probably swore to himself going home that night, never again will that happen. But yeah, Brian, this is his life. He loves it. And no matter what comes back, and, I thought maybe in 12 or 13 or 14 he might, head on and enjoy golf. But golf is just too sedate for Brian.
I just hate golf.
It's too slow.
You're still wondering though now, because of course, who's next in line is the big question, Eddie, isn't it? A lot of lads lining up.
No, there's not actually.
There's a lot of them waiting in the long grass.
I think Sarah has you lined up for the Dubs job anyways.
I was trying to get you into the Cork job, but you wouldn't take that from me. Now, you did say you were born in Cork, Eddie, is that correct?
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable with a job like that, the Cork job?
I don't know. I think I said it earlier on, it's very hard to sit there in an opposition corner, and I think Henry has probably let us have a view of that and consider that. Like, I know myself, you locked horns with Cork, Limerick, every team. There's an appeal in the group. You look at the group and say, could I help that group, or could you make that group achieve something? I think that's the appeal of coaching. And I would look at every team and say, God, you'd like to think I could tweak that a little bit. So there's an appeal in every job, but I suppose when it comes down to it, it's that emotion of you are who you are, your blood is the colour that it is, and now you're maybe in the opposite corner helping the opposition, take the ankles off your own crowd. So I don't know, but I think if you consider something an offer, then you have to be big enough to get on with that too.
But if there's less traditional counties...
Hold on there, lads. Just there's two other lads here now. It's not all Kilkenny today.
Well, look, we've seen nothing to suggest that Cody would have an issue with you taking a job of a rival county at all.
We'll see. Time will tell.
Looking at today, lads, and the various different matchups, who's going to pick up Aaron Gillan?
Hugh Lawler?
Yeah.
I think so. I think he's too physical for Mikey Butler and the kind of game he plays. They'll want Mikey moving more. I think Hugh Lawler's picking up Gillan. I think that deals with Gillan's threat in behind aerially. Probably, in fairness to Hugh Lawler, he's very good that way. I worry that he could get a little bit of the kind of treatment. We'll say that Gillan dished out to Cork. Gillan didn't beat Cork aerially last year. He actually beat them laterally along, in the way he moved.
Yeah.
Cork had matched up with Robert Downey on him to kind of think that, look, he's the physical threat in the line, but he actually ran him to the right and the left. And I just wonder, if Limerick can get that two inside with Flanagan Gillan, could Hugh Lawler struggle out to the left and right? Because Dahi Burke, you would say, is possibly a little bit more mobile than Hugh is, but a fine player, don't get me wrong. But Dahi's a little bit more mobile again, and he struggled with the ball into them pockets to the kind of, especially to the kind of 13 slot there. That Gillan, Gillan was getting ball, taking it, and then shooting kind of over his shoulder. And looking at that as a hurling person, you're saying, there isn't a whole lot the defender's doing wrong here. No. There isn't a whole lot he can do with this. So I would worry that side of it that Hugh Lawler might struggle with that if Limerick can isolate those pockets of space for Gillan.
He sort of looks unmarkable at the moment.
On current form, yeah, he is. In
Hurler
fairness,
of the year, right now?
I'm hoping so. I might have had a flutter on that earlier in the year. A past pupil of the college in Mary as well, so I'd love to see him do it. Look, I'd love to see him do it as well. Just I think he's had an excellent year. I thought he was the best player in the Munster Championship. But right now, you look at Limerick and they have so many lads that could actually be hurler of the year. I would say straight away there's 4 hurlers of the year candidates in the Limerick team alone. Is Nash, Declan Hannon, Diarmaid Burns and Aaron Gillan. The 4 of them have been phenomenal all year. So it just kind of outlines the scale of the task really that's facing Kilkenny. But yeah, I think he's an excellent form. I thought he was the best player in the Munster Championship, hands down. I think he stepped up big time this year. We spoke about Cian Lynch being missing for the year. Other players had to stand up and kind of take the mantle, and I think he really has in a big way.
It's Gillan's speed of thought. He's not very fast, but he's able to break off a static position so quickly. and it's the speed of thought that is it. But Kilkenny will definitely have to cut out the supply, because we've seen in 2019 when Shamey Callanan got supplied with the ball, tip backs were able to plant their feet, Shamey was pointing where he wanted it. There's no defender can deal with that.
And Galan's movement is excellent.
Yeah,
like there's a few graphics on Twitter, and I should, if I was any good, I'd have them. They'd be up on the screen, but like that actually kind of just show the runs he makes before he makes the run
Inside the 14.
and it's all inside the 14, and it's like just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm gone. Like, and it's just constant like that. And like they're so good at that in Limerick.
I would love player, if future of GA having a player cam attached to Galan and just watching his runs, because that's the only way you can actually coach it inside forward to play that position. Camogie players hate playing inside in the inside line because they think they're the first going to be called off, whereas the lads love playing it. But I
Can you imagine a GoPro on it?
It's coming.
absolutely running.
Literally on the way in here, I was watching Olivier Giroud with a player cam on in a pre-season friendly, and it is unbelievable. So I'd say it's coming pretty quickly.
The high behind though that they do the football kickouts on a lot is very, very good. Like if they actually, and like you can request to watch games on that on TG Car. Second time I'm going to plug TG Car on one of these road shows. But like you can go online, I think, and watch it's called the Tactic Cam, and you can actually watch it in some of the games. Like you can actually watch it from behind the goal, and you see an awful lot there, especially that side of things. You see puck outs, kick outs, and I think like puck outs is something where Limerick are market leaders at the moment. Like they have taken it to football levels of actual coaching and playbook style stuff, but like their actual inside forward movement is phenomenal. Like it's miles behind. I think if anyone here is going to the game, like which most people I presume are, it's something you'll see a lot better at a game than you'll ever see on telly, because you won't see it on telly. You'll just see the end result, which is a lad collecting the ball in acres of space. But if you actually watch it on the game today, like if you see the ball around the 30-40 yard line, just train your eyes up there and see what's going on between Galan and Flanagan, because it's different level.
There's so many comparisons, Eddie, that can be made with the great Kilkenny side, and one of them is that on All-Ireland final day, different players seem to crop up every time. So you'd spend the entire pre-match talking about Henry, and then it'd be yourself or Richie Power or Owen Larkin or somebody would deliver a man-of-the-match performance. And that's the problem for Kilkenny coming into this. We can talk about Aaron Galan and his importance, but like Tom Morrissey, Gearóid Hegarty, it's hard to see them being as quiet in a final as they were in the semi-final.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think Limerick, what I admire so much about Limerick is where they have got to, and I done an analysis piece on them in 2017 on the Sunday game when Paul Kinnerk and this setup was in its infancy, and I commented that they had this kind of T formation in the forwards where they all played through the middle, and they were trying to use the pockets left and right, and Gearóid Hegarty was making those runs across the middle and the ball would land in front of him and he broke onto it, and they got some of it right, but they really polished it up. But I suppose it's the options, right? You don't see one run and that's it. So the forwards make a run, it goes the other way. They're now rounding back around thinking, where can we go to next to hurt the team? If it's not working long, they go to Burns, they go to Barry Nash, maybe Dara Donovan or Declan Hannon in a little triangle, or they can actually hit those pockets out on the 45s where Flanagan or Galan can break to, Flanagan in particular. So that's what I admire about them, and that's why the challenge is so big for Kilkenny today, because if you prevent them one way, they're so smart, they can, right, that's not working. Nicky now starts firing them and spraying them around. Gearóid Hegarty and Tom Morrissey come all the way back, and do you stick or twist? Do we make a zonal marking, or do we actually go with them and make sure they don't get the ball? Because that's where Limerick are so dangerous when they break forward. They have it everywhere, and I'm just really intrigued to see, can Kilkenny sustain their approach and carry it to deal with the different options, but take it right to minute 74.
That's the big difference this year to last year, Ciarán. Like Cork never laid a glove on Limerick for the entire match. From 2 minutes in, it was clear what way this was going. Kilkenny, you feel physically are going to bring something. Limerick will have to answer some questions today at the very least.
In fairness, it wasn't only Cork. For the last 4 years, Limerick have been demolishing teams. This is the first year, actually, if you sit back and size it up, and you could say, yes,
matches.
The gap is tightening. And it's tightening because the rest of the inter-county teams are kind of coming tactically aware just now what Limerick are really trying to implement on any given day. Yeah, and I suppose the Munster final and the Galway game, I suppose Dermot Byrne's long-range frees really were hugely implemented in those two games, because if he wasn't on form, there's a possibility Limerick mightn't be there today. Yeah, and Aaron Gillane, I don't think it's in Brian Cody's DNA to earmark someone on Aaron Gillane because, as you rightly pointed out, there's about 5 or 6 there. How's he going to do that? And, you know, I think the win and the lose under this, really, Eddie just touching it there. Tactically, Aaron is fine, but if there's going to be space in front of Aaron, he's going to do damage all day long. So I'd be asking the question, who's going to mark Gerard Hegarty and Tom Young Morrissey, and are they going to follow him? And if they're going to follow him, Aaron Gillane is going to do exactly what he did all year, this year again. So that area of the field between 5 and 12 is going to be huge. It'll have a huge impact in the final whistle. And the big one I'm looking at too, are Kilkenny going to squeeze up on Nicky Quaid puck outs. If they do that, they have a chance, but if they allow Nicky go to 2 or 4, then Kilkenny could be under a bit of pressure.
Looking at the change in how teams approach Limerick this year, because last year, again, you think of the puck outs and they had it so easy to move the ball up, and the quality of short passing is as good as we've ever seen. The teams that have had success, is it by pushing right up on them?
It's hard to say. Like, I mean, I think it's all well and good to say Galway got success in that game when they kind of pushed Mannion up, but like they didn't push him up that much. Like he still was floating between the two areas. Like I think, like Ciarán rightly said, you can say, oh, we're going to push up man for man, but if you leave those pockets of space, like, you're going to get destroyed on them. And like when Limerick go short now, like, I mean, the slight change in what they do, like they used to run the ball out and basically work it to midfield and kind of get shots off from there. And this year they've gone short to Finn, Casey, and in particular Barry Nash. And the boys actually, it's like a second puck out. They look for straight away, look for that half forward runner. So like they are adapting in game to what's going on, what's being presented in terms of that challenge, in terms of pushing right up in the puck outs. But like, I think you have to nearly come at Limerick, and I said this last year, like you nearly have to come at Limerick the same way you would have probably had to come at the Dubs in their peak, in that you need to have a plan, and you need to have a plan for when they figure out your plan. Because like I spoke to Derek McGrath about this, and the term he used was corrective analysis. And like basically, like I think anyone in layman's terms, that we might get a water break today. It was the famous tactics board that the whole country was talking about, as if every dressing room in the fucking country doesn't have one. Like, but that Kinark had the tactics board out, and they'd get to that point at 15-20 minutes, and if you were doing something that was upsetting their rhythm, they could correct it so well. And their players are so smart and they're so well drilled that they're correcting the bit of joy you get all the time. And that's where they're similar to the Dubs, because I know I heard Paul Flynn say that like the hardest thing to do in Croke Park on a big day is get messages into the pitch. But Limerick are so good at correcting things in game that like you nearly have to have 1 or 2 and maybe even 3 plans for them. So like it's all well and good to say we're going to squeeze up. You might get joy for 15-20 minutes, but as Eddie said, then Nicky Quaid's going to start spraying the ball into the spaces you've left. So then you have to have a plan for cutting that out. In the same way, like you look at another transformative goalkeeper, Stephen Cluxton, you could only get joy off him for so long before he'd start saying, okay, so this is what they're doing, that's where the space is, and that's where the space is. So like, if you're going to beat Limerick, you have to come at them with a very good base plan, but you have to have an idea of what you're going to do at the turn. And like we spoke beforehand about subs and things like that, like Galway were so well drilled for plan A, there was no answer to Reedy, Lynch, Casey.
I think that was the
I
thing.
don't think they're squeezed up in the puck out there, to be fair.
No, they
the
didn't.
one team that sticks out to me that has a template to catch Limerick is Clare in the Munster final.
Yeah.
That's how you go about your business. And, you know, easier said than done also. And I suppose, irrespective of the plan that you're trying to implement, unless you have the basics right, you could sense and feel after 2 minutes of that game it was going to be a cracker.
Yeah.
Because Clare hit them with everything, and they kind of brought it back as much as they could from man to man, a bit of 90-90 and the modern game, and they weren't too far away from it.
But I think the key to that, Nathan, is 2 points on Limerick. It's when you score or you get a shot off, they're gone straight into next play mode. And I think for me, the pattern I've seen with Limerick over the last few years is they're able to cancel out a score so quickly. Like, we looked at that piece where Tony Kelly hooks Hegarty, and it's phenomenal. But watch the puck out, what happens next. Seamus Flanagan is after being in the mix over there. He floats a quick shoulder check, and he spots that the whole far side of the pitch is open, and he just gives a little, and Nicky Quaid is the magic man for me. He spots that gap is out there, And straight away, like Tony Kelly, and we're all going, oh, what a score. Limerick have it cancelled out straight away. Yeah. And I think that's a hugely important thing, that if you're going to take them, you have to cut out those scores that cancel you out, and that's a concentration issue.
We're going to get to predictions in a minute, but this does remind me a lot of pre-match talk around that great Kilkenny era. We spend the entire pre-match talking about how you stop Kilkenny, and today is how you stop Limerick. We should talk about actually what Limerick need to do to stop Kilkenny briefly as well, and what they do in particular around TJ Reid. Where does TJ play the first 10-15 minutes of this game?
Hard to know, but they definitely rattled Clare the last day by dumping him in corner forward, and it's a position I think was really suited to TJ. And I'm going back to the past. If you look at 14, he gave James Barry fierce bother coming in from the 15 side. You know, anyone that's holding the hurl left or right, you want to jockey the defender to that side that you're holding your hurl and your catching hand is free. But look, TJ does what TJ does, which is everything. And I think if you look at the last day, Limerick look at it and they go, we're not deviating from our plan, which is brilliant, and they're dead right. But they will also be very mindful that if they can cut out the impact that TJ has on the game, and this is where Limerick are phenomenal. You talk about the coaching and the movements. Their basic skills are better than anyone at the moment. They don't miss-hit a ball. They don't fumble a ball. You know, you have to put serious pressure on them that when the ball is passed to each other, it sticks every time. And Brian Cody is very much a fundamentals man as well. If our skills and our touch and all our basics are brilliant, then the rest will come along with that. If Limerick's basics aren't brilliant, they can't play that movement game. So I think that's where, look, TJ Reid's skill level is phenomenal, and he's the key man. So if Limerick will look at it, they'll say they have to shut him down. But I'd be hoping today we get a bolter. Owen Cody perhaps could be the bolter, but he's Sean Finn for company perhaps.
I would be amazed if you have a programme like you'll see TJ Reid is 10 and Mullen is 13. I would be amazed if that's not swapped. And that they try to get TJ onto Barry Nash and just ask a question of Barry Nash, because Barry is he's like the best player. He's playing a totally new role of cornerback. He's a playmaking cornerback. Like, I'd be amazed if Kilkenny don't try and pin him back in and say, you know, mark our best forward. And equally on the same side, I think it would be insane for Kilkenny to leave TJ with Dan Morrissey for company. Probably the only physical match for him. Whereas I think Adrian Mullen caused Clare unbelievable trouble. Like, he had Paddy Fitzpatrick up and down the line. He didn't know whether to stick or twist. He had him down taking puck outs at one point. He had him inside corner forward at one point. And I think they'll try and get Mullen to ask a similar question of the Limerick backline, because one thing Limerick have better than anyone is they have unbelievable structure. They're 5, 6 and 7. Like, you will never see them out of that kind of large enough box, but you will never see them deviate from it. Declan Hannon steps up a small bit from 6, but he's always central. Dan is always on the left, Diarmid is always on the right, and they always try to keep their house there. So I would imagine that Kilkenny will try to get Mullen to do a similar role, and equally then what that does is it allows Mullen to possibly head off Hegarty or Morrissey, allowing Kilkenny's 5 or 7 to actually drop in the couple of yards and cut out them pockets of space that Ciarán talked about.
Yeah, my concern about that is in pinning TJ into the corner. 3 scores for Kilkenny came off of TJ's dispossessions. You know, you 2 for Mullen and you 1 for Cody. If he's in there in the corner, I don't think we're going to have the same impact on that half-back line. 2
of them dispossessions came on Conor Cleary though, the full-back. So it's where he turns guys over, I would say, is a big thing for him. So, like, you think about that again, right? You think Barry Nash coming out with the ball, it's like a feature of Limerick's play this year. What a hammer blow that would be, and I think it's a Kerry term about hammering the hammer. Yeah. Like, if TJ could turn Barry Nash over 2-3 times, that's as big a lift as anything you're going to get.
I nearly don't want to see TJ playing 11 today, because I know Donoghue or Donovan will be doubling up on him there, and TJ is trying to work in confined space, and he's phenomenal. Just something left field, throw him out on Burns for a while. Yeah. You know, he's coming in from this side, so I'd rather he stays out of that zone. I think giving him the licence, and he finds Mullen so well.
We are here at the Guinness Storehouse in partnership with Guinness 00. Now 100% Guinness, 0% alcohol. More social occasions off the GAA pitch are yours for the taking. If you're listening in, we're going to be back here next Sunday ahead of the All-Ireland football final between Galway and Kerry. It is the perfect place to warm up with this Guinness 00 brunch. We got hat scarves and headbands to our right. We've got an ice cream machine over there. We've got pancakes. We've got Guinness 00. We are perfectly set up for the match, and now all we need are our pre-match predictions. We'll hold on to the neutrals for a minute because I suspect what's going to happen down the end down there. Ciarán, what are you going for?
I want to give my tuppence worth from the last conversation, telling you a chance to come in. I would see TJ Reid myself going into the smallest fella in the full back line, which would be Michael Casey. TJ's wheels wouldn't be as strong as they were in the past. I also wouldn't rule out Richie Hogan being started at centre forward either. I think that could be something that Brian could do during the game. I think he's a tailor-made centre forward and he could create serious hassle. But would I be concerned of any 2, 3 or 4 on TJ? Not really. They're three fantastic hurlers. And you know,
Ciarán, give us your prediction.
My prediction is, you know, it was 50-50, but the closer I'm getting to the game and coming up, I see it as the mother and father of All-Ireland finals, and I see it being extremely close, and I'm giving Limerick the nod.
Eddie?
The other way around. Very simple. No, I think it's going to be some All-Ireland for whoever picks it up today if we don't get a replay. You know, Kilkenny will have had to go beat the champions that have been phenomenal. Please God, we will. But equally, I think if Limerick are to win the All-Ireland this year, it would be some cap on it for them. When you look at the Munster campaign and what they've beaten, it will be an All-Ireland for the ages. You know, so please God, we'll get the right side of it. But
all right, Jamie.
At the start, initially, I thought, Jesus, we're set up for a game, and the closer we get, the more I lean towards Limerick. I just think they're going to look at this, like Eddie said, it's like the full set. Like it's the perfect All-Ireland if they win it this way. Like it's literally every team they'll have beaten everyone in Munster, Galway and Kilkenny. It's like, and I just think that group, they are so driven at creating their own history that this is just a huge opportunity for them. And like, the other thing with them I look at is, I think last August they saw Cork and they saw this kind of thing happening in Cork where, you know, we'd won the minor, we'd won the 20s, and they thought, a bit like, you know, to come full circle, we compared them to that great Kilkenny team for a long time, and what they were more than anything was ruthless, you know. And this Limerick team looked at Cork last year in an All-Ireland final and thought they could be coming, and they stood down, and they stood down hard. I think they're going to look at this as another kind of thing of Kilkenny, this is such an opportunity to really just, you know, rubber stamp our credentials as one of the greatest teams of all time. And I just think that group will go after it in a way that we haven't seen since Eddie's Kilkenny team, basically. So,
what are you saying?
I'm giving Limerick about a 5-point win.
After all that, I thought you were going to sit in the
I think
bench.
beating Kilkenny by 5, by the way, is like...
Yeah, we'll get on
it's like
to
beating anyone else by 10.
the conversation then, which is the greatest team of all time. We can have another, when you're not sitting on the same couch as Eddie Brennan, I suspect.
I think there are a few All-Irelands short of that conversation, to be fair.
Right.
I think well, I wouldn't rule it out in a couple of years, though.
Sarah, we've got 2 for Limerick.
For everything that Jamie said, there's so much beyond the 70 minutes for Limerick and everything they could possibly achieve from today. And all Brian's team has to do is win one and take it all away. I'm with Kilkenny.
All right. Split down the middle. What are we thinking down there? Who we got for Limerick? Jeez. Greg, you're on your own. The Kilkenny crowd, can they make a bit of noise? Ah, jeez, well, don't go by the audience. It's only going one way. Let's give it up for Sarah O'Donovan, for Jamie Wall, Eddie Brennan, and Ciarán Carey. Thanks for joining us at the Storehouse. If you all stay in your seats for 1 minute, we have got a very special raffle because we have 3 pairs of tickets to give away to the game for anybody who doesn't already have them. If you have them already, give them back and give them to somebody else. You've got plenty of tickets. I heard Eddie's got about 10 pairs still left anyways. So you should all have been given a raffle ticket on the way in. Sarah, do you want to do the honours?
Sure.
You'll be the most popular woman in the place.
Okay, so 76 to 80.
76 to 80. We got one?
Very good. Very good.
Well done. There you go. 2 tickets. Simple as that. Jeez, if only it was always this simple.
Right. Okay, 61 to 65. Yay.
Hey, well done, lads.
The last one.
And one more pair to go.
21 to 25.
Where are we? Well done,
Hey!
right down the back.
Great job.
All right, well done, Sarah. Thank you very much, everybody. As I say, there's plenty here to keep you going over the next couple of hours until we all head up to Crow Park in about 45 minutes' time. But thanks a million for coming along, and thanks again to all our panel.